Support the thrust on poverty reduction and food security. Having been Food Security Secretary for a year and a half in the cabinet of President Aquino, we precisely put in place several reform measures that we believe would address poverty reduction. Nearly 90% of poverty is really rural poverty. Therefore, poverty is by and large a agriculture rural phenomenon. If we want to address poverty squarely, we must be able to address the issues of agriculture modernization, upping incomes of our farmers and our fisher folk. The average income of a farmer based on the data is 23,000 pesos a year, not even 2,000 pesos a month. The average age is 56 years old, and the average educational attainment is grade 4. Clearly, this indicates how neglected farming and the farmers in society have been all these years. And that's why the prevalence of poverty continues. While the rest of the region has been able to address poverty and have been able to make headway in terms of reducing poverty in their incidence in their country, we have yet to reach that level. Inclusive growth is still a challenge. What we must do is to invest in agriculture. What we must do is to ensure that government programs and intervention in agriculture would lead to increased incomes of our farmers and our fisher folk. How do we increase their incomes? We have to make them competitive. We have to build capacity. We have to give them access to credit. We have to train and mobilize resources around the farming community. Until we give the farmers the respect that they have long been denied, we will not be able to secure our food. We must secure our farmers if we are to secure our food. And securing them is precisely making policies and programs that would result in improved quality of life, which can be measured by way of increases in their incomes. So that is an overall strategy. And we did this in the agencies that we were able to oversee, that we managed. For the National Irrigation Administration, we caused the approval of 30 billion pesos worth of NEDA projects, irrigation projects. 30 billion pesos worth of irrigation projects would mean more jobs for our rural sector. It would also mean, when the irrigation systems are completed, greater yields. They will be able to have double harvests, which means increasing in their incomes. So this we were able to do, cause the approval of those projects. For the Philippine Coconut Authority, we have identified 35 areas in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao wherein we will provide resources so that we will develop coconut enterprise development. We will move away from simply copra, which is the produce of our coconut farmers, primary produce, and we should move towards value adding and diversifying our product line. Cocoa sugar, cocoa peat, cocoa coir, these are additional incomes for our farmers. Even cocoa water, which would, if put in place properly and given the necessary support, can increase incomes in coconut farms by as much as 10 times. The average farm income from coconuts and copra is 15,000 pesos a year. If we do intercropping, if we do value adding, that they produce cocoa coir, they produce cocoa sugar, they can actually increase their incomes by 150,000 to 200,000 pesos a year. And that we began in the Philippine Coconut Authority. With respect to good governance, we also support and stress the need for good governance. when we handled the National Food Authority and the importation of rice in the country, for the first time in the history of the NFA, we rejected bids that we felt were too high in terms of buying of rice. We were able to bring down the average cost of rice per metric ton because of our rejecting expensive bids or prices that were too high by as much as $120 per metric ton. The records are pretty clear. Unprecedented rejection of bids led to the lowering of prices of rice imported, which in turn gave the NFA and the national government the chance to save as much as 7 billion pesos in just 1 year, which led to, in 2014, NFA turning in a profit of 1.8 billion. That's the first time since the 90s that the NFA turned in a profit. In good governance, we also made sure that there was discipline in the ranks of the NFA managers. We had caused the investigation and the disciplining and the filing of cases against erring NFA personnel, administrative as well as criminal cases. Again, for good governance, we also caused the investigation of, and eventually there was a filing of cases against 52 erring NIA, National Irrigation Administration officials. The Department of Justice coordinated with our office and eventually recommended the filing of graft cases against 52 NIA employees. So that was also under our watch. So we believe that we must exact the highest standards, ethical standards, and the highest standards of integrity in our public servants and our public officials. And finally, for job creation, again, the biggest employer actually is agriculture. And it is the least amount of investments that can create jobs in the agriculture sector. We support that. We have, the challenge really is how do you move away from subsistence farming, which is the general norm in Philippine agriculture, and move towards farm enterprise development. When we focus on farm enterprise development in partnership with the private sector, we will be creating more jobs in the rural sector, and therefore they need not sell their farms, come to Manila, or perhaps find jobs abroad, because the jobs would be where they are and it would be giving them improved quality of life. Another strategy to address poverty, specifically poverty in the rural areas, is to create a office, a presidential assistant for fisheries and aquatic resources, and designate an official with cabinet rank. The poorest of the poor in the agriculture sector are from the fisheries sector. Our fisher folk are the most impoverished in society. We also believe that fisheries and aquatic resources has huge potential in terms of income generation if there is a focal person. Right now, you do have the Department of Agriculture, but it is already involved in a lot of other aspects of Philippine agriculture. In other countries, there is a Department of Fisheries. In our case, perhaps as a first step to get there, we should create a cabinet rank official in charge of fisheries and aquatic resources, so that we may be able to address the poverty, which is the poorest of the poor, who are our fisher folk. After discernment and reflection and prayer, I decided to seek a third term in the Senate. I felt that we made initial successes. We had initial successes in reforming the agencies that we took charge of when we were Presidential Assistant for Food Security, and to follow through on our reforms and make sure that these reforms do not yung hindi ningas kugon, tuloy-tuloy ito at hindi mabalik sa dating gawi, we will ensure that in the Senate, if we are given the chance to strengthen our oversight over these agencies and to follow through on the reforms that we started out, but this time through budgetary support as well as oversight. Against abortion. I believe in the sanctity of life. I am against euthanasia. I voted in favor of the abolition of death penalty, and I believe it is not the certainty, it's not the severity of punishment, but the certainty of punishment that will make people respect the rule of law. And I'm in favor of divorce, but only in extreme cases when it is established that the union no longer respects the dignity and the humanity of either spouse. But otherwise, we must protect marriage as an institution. I do not believe that you should be able to simply walk away from a marriage by whim. Hindi pa pwede yung ganong klaseng parang ngayon kasal, bukas hiwalay, kamakalawa kasal ulit, matapos ang 2 linggo hiwalay. That will weaken marriage, and marriage is an inviolable social institution that needs to be protected if society is to be strong.